Going to go ahead and begin our time tonight with Eli. I just want to welcome everybody to tonight's event. Glad that you could join us. Take some time on a Monday night. I know that this is going to be really helpful for all of us on a lot of different levels. But as you know, when you were invited to this event tonight, we are meeting with and connecting with Olympian Eli Bremer. Read a little bit here just about not all of his accomplishments, just a few, but just some of the things that we've learned as we've gotten to know him and developed a friendship with him. But Eli is a world-class athlete who has competed in all the major worldwide competitions, including the Olympic Games. He's represented the USA as a pentathlete, which I think is pretty much every event except for ballroom dancing. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, I told you on our call a little bit ago what you didn't know. I actually did a Dancing with the Stars.
That's right, you did. But one of the neat things too, though, is that Eli has also served our country as a major in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and I have a passion for that segment of the population as well. Eli serves as the team captain of the Shackley Peer Performance Team. Currently serving the needs of over 100 Olympians. But as I've gotten to know Eli, really, in my mind, his greatest work, as I see it, is rooted in his understandings of the health needs that exist in today's world at the Olympic level, or with everyday athletes, as well as the changes that really need to be made in societies to change this downward trajectory of health that as we look around, we can all observe. But the great thing about Eli is that he doesn't just talk a good game, but he's taken his past and his current experience, and he's leveraged that for the benefit of others. And he's doing that by taking an entrepreneurial path to coach and to consult, as well as run his own businesses in areas where he has identified needs that align with his abilities, his skills, and his passions. So that is really awesome to see. He's very goal-driven, focused, and I know a great example for any of us to learn from. As of now, Eli lives in Colorado with his wife and young son. He speaks to an average of 50,000 to 100,000 people per year, and we're honored to have him with us tonight as a guest. So I know all of us will walk away with tools that will be helpful for whatever success that we're getting after. So it's been a lot of fun getting to know Eli and his family over the last several years, and really have enjoyed finding ourselves at times an hour or more deep in conversations about how to serve the health and performance needs of others in our lives and in our circles. So with that, Eli, I just want to thank you for taking some time to be with us tonight to share your story and things that you're passionate about. We're really looking forward to it. So I'll hand it over to you. We'd love to hear just your story to begin with.
Awesome. And I think, do you have the chat box set up here? If people have questions, we can text you. All right, great. So if you got questions, send them over to Ryan and Harper, and I'll see if I can answer those at the end. We may or may not have time. Well, thanks everybody for joining tonight. Welcome from Colorado. I live out here in Colorado Springs. We're at 6,100 feet and about 75 degrees. So just to make all of you jealous, or maybe hotter or a little more humid climates. But this is also where I grew up and kind of where I'll start my story. I grew up just north of Colorado Springs, and I was kind of the last athlete, or the last person anybody ever expected would become an athlete. I was a chubby little kid, and I was the youngest of three boys. And, I basically did whatever my older brothers did. So when my mom got a knee injury and had to go do rehab in the pool, my brothers decided that they wanted to take up swimming, and they did. And so I decided I wanted to join the swim team, and I didn't because I was bad. And so, so everybody has this conception, here I am, this former two in the world, all these great accomplishments, and I would have started, a charmed career as an athlete. Nothing could be further from the truth. So, my first foray into sports was getting turned down to the swim team, but they said, just go take some swim lessons. And you can come try out again. So I took a bunch of swim lessons and tried out again, and they said, nope, still not good enough. And this wasn't even like a good team. This is like a bad team. And so took a whole nother round of swim lessons. And on my third attempt, I got accepted into the slowest swim team in Colorado Springs. And I was like the slowest swimmer in the slowest lane on the slowest team in town. So, I did really definitely start at very humble beginnings there. But I had a passion for sports. And I gather many of you on this call are very interested in sports and in how you can improve in sports. So, a little word of encouragement there, just, passion and desire can go an awful long way as you sort of build your life forward. So anyway, I started out as a swimmer, and then my parents owned some horses, so I did some horseback riding. And I was a decent horseback rider. I was a pretty lousy swimmer, and in fact, I was so bad that by the time I was 13 years old, my parents pulled me aside one day, and my brothers had since stopped swimming. They're both older than me. They were thinking more about college, and they were working and saving money. And my parents said, we think sports isn't really panning out for you. You should quit swimming and just focus on piano because you got a lot more talent for music than you do for sports. I countered with them. I'm a pretty good negotiator. And I said, what if I just drop out of piano and instead I do more swim practices? And they said, we think that's a terrible decision, but we'll support you doing it. So I leaned into my sports at that point. I had this crazy dream when I was 6 years old. I remember watching Mary Lou Retton compete at the Olympics in Los Angeles. I thought that's like the epitome of what I could do when I grew up. I wanted to be an Olympian. And again, if you'd asked 1,000 people, will Eli become an Olympic athlete? Every single one of them would have said, not only no, but heck no, and they probably have just fallen out of their chairs laughing at the prospect. So my parents did support me, and I'm very grateful for that. And it was probably about 2 years later that I just really caught on, and I started seeing some big advancements in my sport. And that was also the time that I met a family that had a leadership. And yeah, I was swimming now 11 times a week. I grew up in one summer. I grew 6 inches and lost 20 pounds. And all of a sudden I started looking like a real athlete, and all that passion and training had paid off. So anyway, I met the Krokers, who were selling Shackley products. And they said, hey, if you're into sports, maybe you need some nutrition products. We got some great products. You ought to use our stuff. And I was 15 years old or 16 years old, probably figured I could leap tall buildings in a single bound, and I knew virtually everything there was to know in the world. So the last thing I wanted to do is have my friends' parents telling me I needed some extra nutrition because now things are taking off on my end. So I decided to pawn them off of my mom, who has a PhD in human nutrition. And I thought, I'm going to get them. My mom knows more than anybody else that I know about nutrition. So I said, hey, Mom, the Krokers are annoying me. They're trying to get me to take their Shackley products, and I don't want to take it. Can you tell them I don't have to do this? So my mom went in and started researching this stuff. And again, this is her background. This is what she got in her doctorate in. And she said, actually, this company has laid all the foundational research for supplementation. In fact, they invented the multivitamin. It's a really, really solid company. So I was marginally disappointed that I was wrong. Not going to be the last time in my life I learned I was wrong, but at 15 or 16, that smarts a little bit. And so I just started buying the sports products, the sports drink, and then their recovery product. And it didn't take long for me to figure out I felt a lot better when I was feeding my body the right stuff during workouts and after workouts. And so I just kept on using those products all the way through high school. I eventually became a real standout high school athlete. I started as the slowest swimmer in the slowest lane on the slowest team in town. And by the time I graduated 10 years later, I broke every city record in Colorado Springs. I was a Division I recruit in 2 different sports, in both swimming and in cross country. And so, my life had taken a drastically different turn during that period of time. And I was accepted at that point into the Air Force Academy. They recruited me as a swimmer. I went there and became a 2-sport letterman. I swam, and then I was also on the fencing team. And that was largely driven by the fact that I knew that I wanted to get into the pentathlon and make my attempt at the Olympics in pentathlon. So what is the pentathlon? A lot of people ask that question. It's not a well-known sport here in the U.S. It's more of a European and Asian sport, but it combines shooting, fencing, swimming, horseback riding, and running, and that's all in one day. So it's designed to be the test of the most versatile athlete at the Olympics. It's a very classic European sport. It was actually invented by the founder of the modern Olympics. And a little weird piece of history, up until 1956, to compete in the Olympics, you had to be a military officer to be allowed to compete in the Olympics in pentathlon. And to date, our most famous pentathlete ever was a young lieutenant who competed in 1912, a Lieutenant George Patton. who would go on to become General George Patton, actually competed in the Olympics in pentathlon in 1912. So we have a strong military history. So going to a service academy, the Air Force Academy, joining the military made a lot of sense. The military supports the pentathlon. There's been a great relationship between the sport and the militaries for decades and decades. So that's why one of the reasons I went to the Air Force Academy. So anyway, I was a two-sport letterman there. After graduation, I started really focusing on my training and gearing up for the 2004 Olympics. I graduated in 2000, had a chance to fly down and watch the Sydney Olympics, and was just really chomping at the bit, ready to go. The Air Force stationed me at Schriever Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, doing contract acquisitions and management. And then I was able to moonlight and train, 5 or 6 hours a day before or after work on either side. So about a year after that, the Air Force cut me loose from my job and said, we want you to just train full-time for the Olympics. I was also accepted at the Olympic Training Center in June of 2001 as a resident athlete. So I moved in there, got a dorm room there, and, now things are just going great. I was moving up the national rankings. I think I was third in the country at the time, but I knew I could leapfrog the other guys ahead of me. The Air Force supported my full-time training. Everything was going great. And then I started getting probably 6 months to a year later. I've been training really hard. Was probably running 50-mile weeks, swimming 15 to 20-mile weeks. And all of a sudden I just started getting depleted energy. And I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I'd gotten mono, hadn't really fully recovered from that, or at least that's what it felt like. And so the doctor said, okay, this is not mono, it's something beyond this. And they started running a bunch of tests and discovered that my red blood cell count was abnormally and potentially dangerously low. I had a hematocrit, which is the ratio of red to white blood cells, of 39%. Which is clinically normal for a woman at sea level. It is clinically abnormal for a male competing at altitude who's a highly trained endurance athlete. So I was short about 20% red blood cells, and there wasn't a good explanation for it. So I went through a whole bunch of diagnostics. They started looking for things like cancer, diseases, anything that would explain why my body was not producing enough red blood cells. And that was the source of fatigue, because if you don't have red blood cells, you can't carry oxygen to your tissues. You can't carry carbon dioxide out of your tissues. So after maybe 6 months or so of some pretty probative tests, they discovered that what I had was extreme anemia. I had about 30% as much iron in my blood as I was supposed to. So I had a what's called a ferritin, which is your blood iron count, of 7, and you're clinically low at 20. So I had 1/3 what the minimum is where you would start iron therapy. So that was what was going on in my life around 2002. I'll pause for a second and tell you what was going on in the Olympics around 2002. So I said earlier I went and watched the Sydney Olympics. I remember watching Marion Jones. I got to go to the track competition and watch Marion Jones run a race at the Sydney Olympics. It wasn't long after that we discovered as a country, much to our detriment, that our Olympic teams in the 1990s had a lot of drug use. And a lot of that had come over from the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of coaches came over and brought doping protocols over. And then in particular in track and field, there was substantial drug use. Many of you will remember the Balco scandal, the Bay Area Lab Company and Barry Bonds. And we had a lot of very high-profile Olympians who were caught using drugs. As a response to this, people started looking at the drug testing systems that were in place. And up until 2000, what had happened was the Olympic committees were responsible for drug testing their athletes. So the U.S. Olympic Committee also served as the U.S. anti-doping system. And so the same agency that's trying to win medals is the same agency that's supposed to be catching cheats. And that doesn't work very well. Globally, the World Anti-Doping Agency split from the International Olympic Committee, and the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency split from the U.S. Olympic Committee and became functionally separate. so that the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency and the World Anti-Doping Agency have only one concern, which is catching cheats. It makes a ton of sense once you think about it. You can't have the fox guarding the hen house. So that was going on around 2002, and athletes were being put into a very strict, no advance notice, 365, 24/7 drug testing. So as an athlete at the world level, I could be drug tested at any time of the day or night, any day of the year. You have to keep forms filed with the anti-doping agency saying where you're going to be. If there's a modification, you'd have to call it in and say, change the practice time. It was a really, really tough way to live your life, to always be accountable for where you're going to be, because we could be drug tested. Okay. On top of that, the anti-doping rules that were adopted, new anti-doping rules, called for what's called strict liability. And what that meant is that if an athlete was discovered with anything in their system that was illegal, even if it got there without your knowledge, you'd get a mandatory ban from the next Olympics. Mandatory. So if you could prove with 100% certainty that you didn't know that you had that illicit substance, you still missed an Olympics. Fortunately, they've kind of relaxed that rule since, because we now know that there are some incidentals out there. But imagine the fear that you have living under that environment. Now, to make matters even worse, on the supplement side, there was a study that I read in 2002 that was done out of, I believe it was Norway, that talked about how 80% of supplements in the Western market, so they're talking about Western Europe, US, and Canada, 80% were contaminated. So as an athlete, athletes simply stop taking supplements, because it's like playing Russian roulette, but instead of having one bullet in the gun, you've only got one empty chamber. From an athlete point of view, that's how we viewed it. So that's what was going on in 2002. Now, I discovered at the same time that I had anemia, and I couldn't produce enough red blood cells because my body's not getting enough iron. And so instead of turning to supplements, I worked with nutritionists, and I said, okay, I'm not going to take supplements because it's like playing Russian roulette. I can't afford to get banned from the next Olympics on a 75, 80% probability. So I changed my diet to a very drastic diet. I would eat spinach constantly. And then the Olympic Training Center staff started fixing me liver and onions literally every day for lunch. I would eat a thing of liver. And we tried that for like 3 months and tested my iron, and we discovered I'd had some major changes as a result, but none of them were good, because liver is not good to eat. It's it's a cleansing organ for your body. So you do get a lot of iron, you get a lot of other junk in the liver too. And that extreme diet did not even make an uptick in my iron count. So I'm still hovering below 10 on my ferritin count. I was really frustrated, went and saw the head physiologist of the Olympic Committee, and I said, what can I do? He said, you don't have a choice. You've got to start taking an iron supplement, because diet's clearly not working. So he gave me the name of a product that he said, you can go buy this at Walmart. I think it's probably safe. It's made by a reputable company. So go take it. Well, I researched, and I said, okay, the RDA is 19 milligrams. So I started taking, 2 times the RDA, didn't feel any different, to 4 times the RDA, didn't feel any different. So I got up to 200, about 250, so almost 15 times the RDA for iron. And we're checking my blood, and nothing's happening. Absolutely nothing. And I'm literally taking almost 15 times the RDA. It's ripping my stomach to shreds. And I'm talking with my mom one weekend, and I told her what's going on. I said, I'm eating liver and onions. I'm taking 10 iron pills a day, and it's not moving the needle. I'm at wit's end. I get fatigued walking up a flight of stairs, and I'm trying to make the Olympics. And she said, we ought to take a look at what Shackley makes. And I said, what difference does it make? It's iron is iron is iron. She said, no, it's not. There's 3 different forms of iron, and everybody ingests the forms differently. And there's a lot more to how something gets in your system. Just because you eat it doesn't mean it necessarily gets absorbed in your system. I had never understood this before. So my mom talked me through this and said, you need to take iron with ascorbic acid because that helps the uptake. You need to take it in the absence of other food because it likes to bind to things like calcium. So I never understood that before, but we got a product catalog for Shackley from the same family that I've been getting my sports products from. And my mom looked at it and said, hey, they've actually got iron and vitamin C in the same capsule, which makes a ton of sense. And she also looked at the type of iron and she said, this is a much more potent type of iron than the one you're taking. So you probably have to take a lot less and your body might actually absorb this. So I got on just the basic iron supplement, and within about 2 or 3 months, all of a sudden my blood iron spiked. It was the first time, I'd seen anything like that. My energy started returning. I was able to actually function correctly again and train fully. So that was an eye-opening experience for me because I'd understood the concept of using sports products and sports drinks and stuff like that. I'd never understood how our bodies truly function and why we need certain vitamins and minerals, and that just, they're not all created equal. So that was the start of a journey for me. It wasn't something I learned overnight, but it was the start of a journey. So I broke my foot actually in the park just outside my house here in Colorado on March 31st, 2004, and knocked myself out of contention for the 2004 Olympics, which was just devastating to me. I just felt humiliated, even though, in hindsight, you might think, well, if you're not going because you broke your foot, how big of a deal is that? Well, you dedicated your life to this, and I thought this was my destiny to do this. And, here I am with a broken foot, not competing in the Olympics. Life took a really interesting turn when Rowdy Gaines, who's the swimming commentator for NBC, approached me one day. We were swimming a workout together while I was rehabbing. And he said, hey, would you be interested in working for NBC at the Olympics? And I said, yeah, I mean, if you're not competing, that's the next best thing. So he made an introduction, and NBC, he was actually supposed to do the commentary for my sport at the Olympics, and pitched me to be the commentator. I was presented to the head of NBC Olympics. She said, no, I don't want him as a rookie commentator. We can't afford that to make mistakes, but he looks like he knows his stuff. Let's bring him out as an assistant. So I got flown out to the Athens Olympics to work for NBC. Rowdy just wouldn't let it go. So he got me in touch with Bill Clement, who was his partner out there, who does a lot of hockey play-by-play calling. Bill trained me up, and then Rowdy went back to Molly Solomon, the vice president of NBC Olympics, and said, Molly, you seriously ought to take a look at Eli. So Molly said, fine, we'll audition him, but we don't hire rookies, and we sure don't hire rookies at the Olympics. So I did an audition. Molly said it was good enough, and I got brought on board as the second youngest commentator of the NBC Olympics for 2004. The reason that was significant was I made a lot of friends out there, and I was invited to go work both the opening and the closing ceremonies. And at closing ceremonies, I was on the floor of the closing ceremonies. I was going out into the field of athletes to snag athletes to bring back to Andrea Joyce for interviews, because I knew a lot of athletes. I just shot Michael Phelps' first TV commercial. I was a teammate of his in his first TV commercial. And so I knew a lot of these folks, so that's why I was working the event. But I was on the field when they transitioned from the Athens Olympics to the Beijing Olympics, which were going to be held in 2008. And when they do that, they bring a presentation out from the next host city, and then the mayor of the current host city hands the flag to the mayor of the next host city. So I was where all the athletes were for that. And I remember watching that and saying, I'm going to rededicate myself to going and being there when the Olympic flame is lit in Beijing in 4 years. Because I wasn't really sure up until that point. I said, maybe this is my life. I get to hang my head on being an Olympic commentator. And that's this childhood dream maybe ends here. But I knew that night at closing ceremonies in Athens, watching the flame get extinguished, I said, I will be on the opening ceremonies field in Beijing as an athlete in 4 years. But I was also 26, which is just starting to get to that sort of point where you're questioning, are you too old to do this? And so as I sort of thought about what I was going to do over the next, 4, 6, 8 months, I started thinking a lot more about, okay, I'll be 30 at the next Olympics. I need to pay a lot more attention to my overall health and wellness. And I need to pay attention, I'm going to pay more attention to my recovery, my eating, my sleeping, all that kind of softer skill stuff, because I need to make sure I'm giving myself every advantage. If I'm putting my family through this for another 4 years, if I'm putting life on hold, I need to be able to walk away and say I left it all out there. I did everything I could. And so that's when I started, really paying attention more to nutrition and diet and stuff like that I hadn't before. And it was during that time that I got on, started getting on a multivitamin regimen, started working with my coaches on a much more specific regimen on how I was eating around my practices and competitions. And all of that stuff, it was not one change, it was 1,000 changes. But it took me from being a good athlete to one of the best in the world. By 2006, I peaked out my world ranking at number 2 in the world. Ryan, I think last week just discovered that I was featured in the National Geographic feature film, The Incredible Human Machine, for my cardiovascular system. They said it was one of the most amazing human systems out there. So I was featured alongside Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. And I became one of the fastest run swimmers on the planet. In fact, I was the second fastest short distance athlete in the world, and one of the fastest that's ever lived at the 200 meter swim, 3,000 meter distances. So that was the benefit of doing everything right, changing my training, all that kind of stuff. By 2007, I was just dominating the country, heavily expected to qualify for the Olympics, and went down and won the Pan Am Games in a blowout, just decimated the competition. It was my 3rd Pan Am gold medal in a row. And that punched my ticket to the 2008 Olympics through what's called a by name slot. Every continent in my sport gets an automatic spot if you win the Continental Championships. So I had 14 months for training for the Olympics. It was right around that time that my wife's a great sort of business-minded marketing person. And she said, dude, you're buying all the Shackley stuff. This is stupid. You're going to the Olympics. You're one of the best athletes in the world. We should get a sponsorship from them just so we don't have to pay for all this stuff, because it's not cheap. And so I said, okay, that's great. So she fills out she fills out some stuff, sends it in. And I finally get a response back. This is the summer of 2007. Get a response back from the company saying, yeah, well, we'd like to sponsor you. We'll basically give you unlimited products until you compete in the Olympics. No cash, which I didn't need the money. I was doing really well at the time. And I said, okay, that's great. But I got the incoming email with the contract one day while I was at the Olympic Training Center. I was at the we still had a computer lab there where you could get on the internet, and I logged on and I look at this offer from Shackley, and supplement companies just have had a terrible reputation in the Olympics because of how much contamination there's been. And I'd done my research. I felt pretty good about Shackley. I felt comfortable enough that I could take their products, but I still just had this twinge because, here I was as a captain in the Air Force, as being presented as this great American hero, all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, but now I'm in a co-brand with a company in an industry that is known to have massive problems. And so I shut the computer down, walked into the dining hall to get a cup of coffee and think about it and really contemplate, did I really want to put my reputation on the line with this company? So walk into the dining hall, I'm grabbing my coffee, and my friend Adam walks up, and Adam was the head nutritionist for the Olympic Committee. And we were talking fairly frequently. And so anyway, he came up and I started chatting, and I said, Adam, I got a question for you. He said, yeah, what do you need? I said, Shackley's offered me a sponsorship, and I'm buying their stuff right now. It's just products. It's not that big of a deal, but it's my reputation. Do you think I could put my reputation on the line with them? And he said, Eli, if I could have every athlete in the Olympics take these products, I would do it, because then I'd know if they tested positive for drugs, it was not the supplement company. He said that's the only company I would recommend to any athlete. So my personal advice as a friend, go do it. So I grabbed my coffee, walked back into the computer lab, printed out the contract, signed it, and scanned it and sent it back. And that started my professional relationship with Shackley. I moved from customer into having a very different relationship. So the next year, I had the most amazing training year, one of the greatest training years ever logged by an athlete in my sport. Hiked up the training substantially. I had access to all these great products. I mean, I'd really dialed in my body, and I went into a very extreme type of training that I don't honestly believe anybody since then has been able to tolerate the kind of training that I did. We were swimming an average of between 20 and 25 miles a week, and then averaging the same week over 60 miles of running. Because the Olympics were going to be held in Beijing and I wanted to make a run on the medal there, we would train to acclimate. I would put on a black running outfit, like my wintertime running outfit, and go run in the 90-degree summer heat in Colorado 3 days a week for an hour and 15 minutes. So I do, 10 miles, that would be a 10-mile cruise run in that environment. And it was largely because I was able to work with the Shackley science team, tweak my regimen, that I was able to replenish everything that was coming out of my body while I was doing this very extreme training. And I had a pretty amazing season in 2008. Credit that largely to just doing everything right, from nutrition to training, everything else. It just all came together really well, and was very well set up to make a run on a medal at the Olympics. I nearly won the first World Cup of the year. And then at the World Championships, I had an equipment malfunction. I swam 25 miles that week. I ran 60 miles, and I still finished 11th, which is the best finish in a decade by an American athlete. So we knew I was geared up and ready to go for the Olympics. I wound up getting a serious injury. I had a horse riding accident 7 or 8 days before competing in the Olympics. It was after opening ceremonies and before competing. And so I didn't get to test my training at the Olympics. I competed, but I had a whiplash and concussion injury and lost all the coordination of my hands during that time. So shooting and fencing were just disastrous for me. But I came back just under 2 months later and almost broke the world record at the World Cup final in 2008. And posted the best finish of any American athlete in about almost 4 decades. It's the only other medal that was better than that was 1979. And that's held to this day as the best performance of an American since 1979. So anyway, I credit a lot of my ability to train at that level, and quite frankly, to be blunt, compete against a number of athletes from countries that didn't have our strict drug testing who were using drugs. And I even at one point had a country that asked my coach, what's Eli's drug regimen? He said, he's not on a drug regimen. He's 100% clean. I'll show you his training plan. No one in the world is willing to do what he's willing to do, but he takes everything seriously: nutrition, massage, sleep, everything. And that's how he's been able to sustain this. I actually wound up training with some of the other best athletes in the world who saw what we were doing, moved into my house, and we had an amazing training group. One of them would go on to win the gold medal in the 2012 Olympics. The other won 5th twice at the 2008 Olympics and the 2012 Olympics. So we had quite a training group. But anyway, after the 2008 Olympics, I retired for a little bit, decided to come back, battled some injuries. Now I was past 30, and was in pretty good position to make the 2012 Olympics again. Got mono in the qualifying season, and just got completely knocked out from that. So, but during that time, I started thinking a little bit more about what was going to come next, and also about, I wouldn't say I was selfish before, but I started thinking more about, what do I want my sports career to mean that's beyond me? This has been a lot about me. What's beyond me? What's the next big thing that I can do? And in 2011, I wound up having a conversation with the chief marketing officer of Shackley. I've been with Shackley for 4 years, and I was talking to him about my relationship with the company, and he was explaining to me, he said, we've run a very traditional sports marketing program. We sponsor a sport federation. We don't feel like a lot of the athletes are using our products. And I explained to him why that's the case. There's some internal reasons in the Olympics why that's the case. And he said, what we really want is to have athletes use our products, because if they're as good as we think they are, it should help athletes perform. And I explained to him also the issues around drug testing. And I said, this is, you guys have the only products that athletes should feel comfortable taking while they're drug tested. So together we hatched this idea for a completely different and revolutionary program where instead of the company sponsoring entities with logos, for lack of a better term, like the Olympic Committee or the Ski and Snowboard Federation or the Modern Pentathlon Federation, Shackley would engage directly with athletes. And instead of trying to pay athletes a ton of money to say that they love the company, instead we would work with them on their nutrition and give them great nutrition products. And if our products worked, athletes would want to be part of our program. So in 2011, we founded the Pure Performance Team. And that name was chosen very specifically because of product purity and because of athletic performance. And I said, that's what I want to focus on. I want to be able to build this out and share this with other athletes. So we started, I started just talking to friends of mine who were at the Olympic Training Center, and they said, there's a supplement we can take. Are you sure about this? I said, yeah, you can, check it out. And they said, okay, great. And we had athletes, Olympic athletes started saying, yeah, this is good. I'll share one story of an athlete where it didn't go so well. I was talking to Karen Davies, who's a fairly accomplished athlete. She's got 2 golds and 1 silver in rowing. And she went to Harvard undergrad and then Columbia Law School and then Oxford to get her MBA. So she's reasonable. We'll just say she's reasonably smart. Although I do question anyone who does that much schooling. But anyway, no, she's very, very smart. Karen said, I don't like what you're doing. I know that supplement companies are bad, network marketing companies are bad, and I am going to prove that basically this company is a charlatan. And I'm like, okay, it's a little insulting to me, but I get it. And so I said, tell you what, Karen, you're on. I will give you access to anything inside the company that you want. You can talk to any scientist. You can talk to our physicians. You can do any level of research you want. You go out and you prove that we should not be working with Olympic athletes. She said, yes, I will. So she spent a month, and every couple of days she'd call me and say, okay, I want access to this person, or, what about this? And after a month, she called me and said, I'm done. I can't find anything wrong with this. You guys have all the science. Your products make total sense. I've looked at, your entire corporate history. This company is like squeaky clean. It's never done anything wrong. Like you're the real deal. And I said, well, so where are we going from here? She said, send me a contract. I want to represent Shackley. So Karen was our first female rower that we supported, and she comes from a very affluent family. She could have easily supported our products. This was a moral thing to her. Once she learned what the company did and what we stand for, she said, no, I want to be a part of this. So Karen, one rower. I didn't know a lot of rowers. She was dating a fencer who I knew. That's how I first met her. But Karen she explained to me stuff I didn't know. I'm a guy. I don't know anything about skincare. And Karen's like, did you know Shackley's products are paraben free? And I was like, is that a good thing? She said, oh, parabens are bad. They're bad. Trust me. So, okay, good. So she orders all the sunscreen and stuff and is with the Olympic rowing team when the women start forgetting their sunscreen. And she's like, oh, hey, I got this sunscreen. They're like, this stuff's pretty good. She's like, yeah, it's all natural. It's, chemical free. It's paraben free. You're good. And, then she was ordering like some of our nutrition products, and these girls were asking her, hey, can I have a sample of that? Well, pretty soon I started getting incoming calls from Olympic gold medalist rowers saying, hi, my name's Mary Whipple, and I'm a gold and silver medalist in rowing. Do you think Shackley might be willing to support me? And yeah, of course, you're like an Olympic gold medalist. Why wouldn't we? Fast forward to the 2012 Olympics, we had 17 athletes and they won 7 medals. We had five women on the rowing team who won gold medals. And it was largely spread by word of mouth and athletes saying, hey, we finally have a company that is giving us the products that make total sense. That program has now grown. In 2014, we had about 10% of just over 10% of the U.S. Olympic team was on the Shackley Pure Performance team. In 2016, we had 37 athletes. They won 16 medals, 13 were gold. Interestingly enough, this says a lot about the quality of what we do. We had 5 gals on the women's 8 in 2012, and we had 7 on the women's 8 in 2016 because they sort of handed it down as a legacy. And we've actually had athletes who publicly endorse other companies that we ship products to. We're not going to disclose who they are, but that's the reputation we've earned inside the Olympics, is that this is a good company. Their products are good. You can take them while you're being drug tested. In the 2018 Olympics, we had 28 athletes who won seven Olympic medals. The Summer and the Winter Olympics are an order of magnitude apart in terms of their size, so that's why you see a bit of a discrepancy there. But we had 3 women on the U.S. women's hockey team, 2 of the gentlemen who won the curling gold medal that we've been working with for a number of years, and we believed in them way before anybody else did. We're very proud of that. So anyway, that's who we have. We don't have very famous athletes that we pay lots of money to say that they love Shaklee. We actually have these athletes, literally over 100 Olympians, who last year alone consumed, I think it was $350,000 of Shaklee products. And so I go into that explanation because people oftentimes are like, hey, is this really like a marketing gimmick? And the answer is no, it's not. It's very real. These athletes are performing at the top level in the world. They can choose what products they use. Anyone will give them free stuff. And they choose us. And the reason is two things. Number one, they know that Shaklee has never sent a product to market that was tainted, number one. And number two, that our products actually work to improve human performance. And so that's what we do on the pure performance side. I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about very specifically our sports products now. Shaklee created, they were really at the forefront of sports drinks. If you go back a few decades, Gatorade had come out with this concept of a sugary drink with some electrolytes, and they said, ta-da, maybe you should take this while you're, while you are working out. Maybe it make you feel better or something. Before that, if you look at the ancient, at the first Olympics in Greece, they put out alcohol for the athletes to drink. So we've gone a long way in the first few decades. But from alcohol to Gatorade, we probably made some improvements. There are stories of runners who are running the marathon that finished drunk because they were in Greece. And they're like, will you serve refreshments? So anyway, but we're, a few decades ago, we started saying, hey, maybe we should feed our bodies some stuff while we're training. And so Gatorade came up with their product. What Shaklee did was markedly different. So Shaklee was contacted by some folks that were doing an endurance test of effectively cycling. It was man-powered flight. And they said, we need something that really will help work to power human performance over a long period of time, over an endurance type of activity. So Shaklee researched what you expend when you're doing endurance training. And it sounds really simple, but they just put that into a sports drink. And in fact, when my mom first looked at Shaklee's sports drink, she looked at it and said, this makes total sense. You're basically drinking sweat with some extra carbohydrates. She's like, that's disgusting, Mom. But it makes sense. So anyway, so that's how Shaklee, they approached it scientifically. And they said, we're not out to make a product that tastes super duper yummy. We're out to make a product that fuels your cells, that fuels what you actually need. So they did that. At the same time, they built out, or shortly thereafter, they built out a recovery product. And that was also largely based on endurance, high-level endurance training. Okay, so Shaklee was really on the forefront of this, and for many years was a leading company. They worked with many Olympic cyclers and very high-level endurance athletes. So that's sort of inside the DNA. Now, fast forward to 2016, all of a sudden, athletes are looking a lot different than they did in the 1960s and 1970s. Most people are not training, 3, 4, 5-hour endurance events. Most people are doing much shorter, more explosive types of training, plyometrics and things like that. And so during that time, I think it's important to note that the human body did not change, but the way we're using the human bodies did change. And so the CEO approached me and said, I'd like to put some, your thought into how would we create a sports line around more modern needs of how people are actually working out and using their bodies. And so Shackley created and last year in 2017 launched what I believe is really a comprehensive and one of, if not the most comprehensive nutrition lines for athletes. So I'm going to share that with you now. I'm going to move over and do a screen share. And hopefully this will show. So Ryan Harper, what are you seeing here?
Yep, we can see it.
All right, excellent. I'm going to take this thing on a full screen.
All right.
So, hold on, it's not on full screen yet, is it? There we go. You seeing it on full screen now?
Yeah, you're all set. Good to go.
All right, so I'm going to share with you about our sports nutrition line and actually how it's supposed to be used. Our goal, you can see at the bottom there, is to maximize your athletic performance, recover faster, using our advanced formulas that are powered by nature and proven by science. And that's really key. Our products are all natural. You're not going to find chemicals. You're not going to find pharmaceuticals. They're all natural. That's in the DNA of the company. There is more and more research showing how important that philosophy is. I talked earlier about Karen Davies. Here's a great testimonial from her. As a competitive athlete, at the world-class level, I was subject to 24/7, 365 drug testing. I trusted Shackley products, Shackley Performance to give me pure and clean nutrition so I could train and compete with confidence. And I could go back to 7 years of product usage that Karen has. I think she's got her dad on Shackley now and stuff like that. So great athlete. She went from total skeptic to huge believer in our system and what we do. All right, so we've got two product lines that we work with. One's called fitness and the other's called endurance. This had some confusion at our launch, and I'm going to explain the difference between the two. Largely the difference is fitness is going to have low or no carbohydrates, and endurance is going to have high carbohydrates. And I'm going to explain why those matter and how to use each one. There's 4 types of products that we have. And 3 of them are in different lines. The 4th one is in both lines. We have the Energize, Hydrate, Build, and Recover products. Energize products are the products that you would use going into a workout. These are going to boost your metabolism a little bit. You're going to get a boost of energy going into the workout. Helps keep you a little motivated and hopefully get a better workout out of it. Your hydrate products are just like they sound. They help keep you hydrated, get electrolytes into your body, and keep your fluid levels correct while you're working out. The build products are for what we typically say in sports is for recovery. It's just different nomenclature here. But this is how to rebuild and repair damaged tissues and damaged systems that were worked while you were working out. And then the last product is a recover product. This works very well on post-workout muscle soreness, things like that. I'll get into that a little bit more later. So those are the basic stovepipes that we have. All right, I'm going to get a little technical on us here now. And I'm going to start by saying workouts have 3 components. You've got your cardiovascular, your muscular, and your technical. Nutrition does not help your technical component, so we're not even going to deal with that. Okay, so the technique associated with a sport that's coaching, that's technique. So we don't talk about that. We're going to talk about your cardiovascular versus your muscular training and debunk a little bit about what people think they know about that, and then hopefully build up an idea of how you need to utilize this in your training. So a lot of you have seen this. This is a kind of a cookie cutter slide that shows the different zones of working out. Now, don't get too caught up on the names. People have different names for each of these zones, but these are the generally accepted-ish zones of training. And this is for cardiovascular training now. On the left-hand side, on the y-axis, you see the percentage of beats per minute, so your maximum heart rate, and an estimate. These are estimates. Your age, your age, 200 minus your age is ballpark, you're 100%. So when you're in that top 10%, you're in a VO2 max zone. That means that you are fully anaerobic. Your body is producing lactic acid faster than it can buffer it. This is a very short period of time. We're talking a couple minutes that your body can survive in the VO2 max zone. In the anaerobic, this could also be called maybe threshold training. There's, again, don't get caught up too much on the different words, because different systems use different words for this, but they're all roughly the same. In this zone here, and Ryan Harper, can you see my cursor moving around? Okay, so in this zone here, you're producing lactic acid and your body's buffering it at approximately the same rate. In this zone here, you're producing low levels of lactic acid, but you're working out reasonably hard. In this zone, you're really not working out very hard. This is, low level workout. And then below that, you're kind of in the warm up area. So when you're up here in the anaerobic zone, your body is fermenting lactic acid, which also assists in the breakdown of what's called glycogen in your body. Glycogen is the stored carbohydrate that's in your body. So it's an important process to understand. I'm going to take us to our next slide, and this shows the percentage of glycogen in your body. So you start with 100%, and as you go into heavy exercise, I'm going to jump back and forth here. I'm going to jump back and forth a couple slides. So we're talking heavy exercise in this zone where you're producing lactic acid. At that level, this is an estimate. Don't take these as 100%. If you work out for 60 minutes, you'll have zero glycogen left. But ballpark, you're working out really hard. It takes maybe an hour. Highly trained athletes, it can take quite a bit more than that. But this gives you an idea that you're burning glycogen at heavy exercise. At moderate exercise, you burn some glycogen, but you're burning it a little bit slower. You're not burning as many calories. And at light exercise, so this kind of stuff in this area here, you're really burning fat, and you're not burning very many calories at all. To put this in perspective, you might be burning 300 calories an hour here, 300 to 400 calories, and you might be burning over 1,000 calories an hour at lactic acid threshold, just perspective-wise. So what has happened is, in the past, this was the hardcore running training. This was hardcore cycling. This was hardcore swimming when you're on that heavy exercise trend. So that was what people used to do 30, 40 years ago, and that's how products were designed back then. As we've changed the modality of how we're exercising, when you see fitness athletes, oftentimes they're doing boot camp type of workouts, much more plyometric-based workouts. So what you're seeing is, and again, this is on the cardiovascular scale, not the muscular, but they're depleting some glycogen. They're also depleting some they're also burning through their muscle fibers or tearing apart their muscle fibers. And this is a good time to pause for a second and talk a little bit about what's actually happening while you work out. There is a common misunderstanding. I'm sorry, Ryan, did you need something there? Good. Okay. Common misunderstanding. I just heard something on the background. Common misunderstanding that working out makes your body stronger. That is absolutely not true. When you work out, your body is actually weaker at the end of the workout than it is at the start. This sounds like a very basic idea. It is one of the most misunderstood things in all of sports science by low-level and even some high-level athletes. I'll repeat this. Working out is harmful to your body. It depletes everything. On this slide, it shows that your glycogen is being reduced. Your glycogen is the energy stores in your body. If I had a slide that showed muscle, your muscle, the more weight you're doing, the more things you attach your muscle is actually breaking down, okay? Which begs the question, why in the heck do we work out? If working out actually leaves your body weaker than when you started, why do we work out? And the answer is very simple. Our bodies respond to stress with a rebuilding mechanism. And that's why you work out. You work out because when you deplete your glycogen, when you get down to next to no glycogen or very little glycogen, your body says, I better store some more of this carbohydrate in my muscle so that I've got it more available next time. So your body actually responds and will lay down more glycogen than what you had before. And that's the process that you're actually trying to do. Working out stimulates your body to do what we call in the sports world recovery, or we'll call it with our products building your body back up. So when you tear down your muscles want to rebuild stronger than they were before, because your body says, yeah, we're using muscles. We probably better rebuild these suckers so that next time we don't get hurt so badly. We're running through our glycogen. I probably need to have more carbohydrates available. And so your body self-regulates. It's a really amazing system. Okay. What most athletes fail to do, though, is feed their bodies correctly, understanding how important that recovery mode is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the various products that we have, and hopefully I'll bring this all together over about the next 10, 15 minutes as to how to actually use this. So again, we have the 4 categories, and think baseline is our fitness line, and that has either low or no calories, and then our plus line or our endurance line has high calories, high carbohydrates. Actually, I'm going to stop one more second. A lot of people have heard about the low carbohydrate craze, and I think that's actually very good for our society. We consume way too many sugars. As we get into the sports world, though, it's important to understand how your body is ingesting sugars and carbohydrates, and therefore not to go overboard, because it can have a huge impact on your sport performance. So if you are ingesting carbohydrates that your body doesn't burn, your body secretes insulin, which is a hormone. It's an inflammatory hormone. And insulin, one of the things it does is it takes sugars out of your blood, and it converts them and it stores them into fat. So if you're not burning sugar, if you're not burning your blood sugar, you actually don't want it, because it does preferentially store as fat. So there's a good reason why people have gotten away from sugars, and I think that's a healthy thing. But it's important to understand when to give your body carbohydrates and when not to. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through here. So the Energize product has no calories, but it's going to provide you quite a boost, because it's got the green coffee, green extract. This is going to kind of jack your metabolism, but you're not going to get any carbohydrates. If we go to the Energize Plus, this has 45 calories. And it's going to give you a bit of a boost and raise your blood sugar a little bit, giving you a little more availability to work out a little bit harder if you're doing a cardiovascular based workout. For instance, if I'm just doing working out, trying to stay in shape now. This morning I got up and I took an Energize Plus chew before I swam for an hour and then did a 40-minute run, because I wanted to get some carbohydrates, because I'm about to go work out for an hour and 45 minutes. So that's when you'd use that. Our Hydrate product, this one has all the electrolytes that are lost during physical activity. So if you're working out and you're not burning carbohydrates, let's say you're doing a weight workout, you're doing something like hot yoga, you're doing a walk or a hike, this is a good product for that. If I go back to this slide here, if you're in these zones here, you're probably using the fitness line. If you're predominantly in this zone here, you're using the endurance line. So anyway, the Hydrate Plus product, this was the original sports drink that Shackley designed after replenishing everything your body used during long-term workouts. So basically reconstituted sweat plus the carbohydrates in proportional amounts. So this gives you it's 100 calories a serving of carbohydrates, but it is a slower release carbohydrate, so it's a sustained energy. So it's a different type of a sugar than what you're going to see in a cheap drink like a Gatorade. On the Rebuild products, this is basically pure protein. This is for muscular repairs. If you're tearing apart your muscle, you need protein in order to repair it. It's got leucine in it, which is an amino acid. And it's a very simple product, no added sugar, just protein. Okay, Build Plus, this is for post-workout building. This is going to have 35 grams of carbohydrate and helps rebuild your glycogen as well as rebuild your muscles after more of an endurance type of workout. And then the last product we have is the Recover product. And this is a tart cherry extract. It's really good for post-workout muscle soreness, which it also seems to improve sleep quality. In fact, just about everybody who's taken this that I've heard has reported better sleep. So this is really good for post-workout muscular soreness, making sure that you're ready to go back the next day. So I'm going to back up a little bit here to my other slides and show, okay, if you're doing a workout where it's basically technique, so you're doing, you're an athlete and you're basically working on technique, or you're doing something that does not require a lot of cardiovascular, you really don't want to take a lot of carbohydrates in, but you do probably, especially if you're doing muscular workouts, you need to ingest some protein afterwards so your muscles can properly rebuild. Okay, when you get up into here and you're burning through your glycogen, if you don't replace that glycogen, your body kind of goes in a little bit haywire and it thinks that you're starving it, and all of a sudden you're not repairing all of the systems that you need to repair. Your liver needs glycogen to function correctly, and your liver is out there helping detoxify your body. Your body produces free radicals and things like this while you're working out as part of the cycle of using carbohydrates for energy, using oxygen in your cells. All that produces some junk that needs to be cleared out of your system. If you don't have carbohydrates, if you don't have your glycogen replenished, your body actually can't rebuild itself correctly. So the recommendation I have to athletes is look at the type of workout you're doing. And remember earlier I said the working out actually makes your body weaker. So what's important is I do like the pre-workout stuff. They absolutely help out. But where I really point athletes for the most part now is, pay attention to what you're drinking during a workout. If you're burning through carbohydrates and you're not giving your body carbohydrates, you're basically asking a race car to race on, suboptimal fuel. Doesn't work very well. And so choose a product here that fits the type of workout you're doing. Don't choose a product that works for the athlete. Choose a product that works for the workout. Then when we get over into the recovery and the rebuilding products, if you are doing a muscular workout and you don't give your body protein, it can't rebuild properly. So you tore it down, but now it's not rebuilding. So you're just wasting your effort. You're not getting any of the benefit out of working out. On the flip side, if you're not giving it the carbohydrates it needs, if you depleted your carbohydrates and you don't give it the carbohydrates it needs, you're also not getting the workout benefit that you intended to do and why you went through all the pain of doing a workout. So it's important to understand that basic philosophy. Now, the reason why I help build the products like this is because I realized also that athletes don't always just train one type or the other. And sometimes you're doing a workout like a boot camp workout, or a football player is doing some sort of drills that, they're very cardiovascular, but they're also doing up downs, and they've got some muscular stuff going on. These products were designed to actually be mixed together so you can target your nutrition exactly for the type of workout you're doing. So I'm going to go back to our Hydrate and start with this one and say, okay, this product here, the Hydrate product, is perfect for golfing on a hot day. 4 hours in the hot sun and humidity. You don't need sugar because you're not burning carbohydrates, but you need tons of electrolytes. So that's what this is perfect for. This product is perfect if you're doing really hard running or biking or swimming or something like that. But if you're in the middle somewhere, you just combine the two and you say, okay, maybe I want 50 calories a serving. They're actually designed to be mixed together. So you can say, all right, I want to take in 100, 150 calories. So I know I'm going to need to drink 3 water bottles during an hour and a half workout, but I don't want 300 calories. I want 150, but you can combine the two to get to your targeted carbohydrate and electrolyte level, which means that you're getting exactly what you need. Okay. The same is true with our build products. So let's say that you're doing, let's use our football player scenario where they're doing up downs, they're doing things that are, very high octane cardiovascularly, but it's also tasking them muscularly. That would look a lot like a boot camp type of workout where your cardiovascular system is working really hard, but you're taxing your muscles. You can do a scoop of this, which is going to provide the protein and the amino acids to rebuild your muscles, and you can do a scoop or two of this, which targets your glycogen. So you can do a half serving of this, which would give you about 18 grams of carbohydrates. And, and then you get all of the protein and the carbohydrates you need, but not too much of either one, because you're working out because you probably want to stay lean and fit, or you want to get the maximum benefit out of it. And so you target the nutrition based on the workout you just did. We had a call last week and someone asked, how soon do you want to be using these products? And the answer is immediately. When I was competing, we had the swim and we had to race a 200-meter swim. It's about a 2-minute effort, and that's 100% all out. We're in the VO2 max zone. I mean, you're at 100%. If you tried to go 50 meters farther, you would fall off a cliff. That's how hard you're working. I would actually have I was using Build Plus, which was called Physique at the time. We've renamed it. But I would actually have this in my bottle, ready to go, so that after my race, I would drink usually a half serving of it and then jump in and do my warm down. So nutrition needs to be delivered in the correct proportions and something that you can ingest correctly, and it needs to be delivered at the right time. So if you're not using your recovery products, or what we call build products here, within within minutes is what you want to do of your workout. Your body, you're just giving up free advancement. You tear your body down. You want to immediately lay down the nutrition that helps you rebuild. And so that's a big misunderstanding that I see with athletes as they come up through a system. And quite frankly, one of the big differences I see between elite athletes and sub-elite athletes is that the top elite athletes understand that what you eat after a workout is actually much more important than what you eat before the workout. And so they focus very heavily on this. So anyway, I am looking at the time here, Ryan and Harper, and seeing I've gone just slightly over on this. So I'll pitch it back over to you and see if I missed anything that you wanted me to cover. And if we had any good questions that came in that we got time to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Eli. No, this is outstanding. I would say I have one question, and then as we wrap up, I think it's so important, because I think with so many supplements out there today that people do look at as they train, so many of them are focused on it's the marketing of it. It's this will help you either lose body fat or increase muscle size, right? And obviously that is the goal of a lot of training in order to grow in your training and your abilities. But what I love about some of the points that you made along the way, and one of the reasons that we've chosen Shackley over the years, is the purity aspect, because you can buy a supplement that helps increase muscle mass or reduce body fat. But if it's doing damage on your internal organs that are just as important for driving you forward in your goals and keeping you healthy long-term, it's good to know that with the purity aspect of Shackley that we're not meeting one goal of fat loss or rebuilding muscle, but we're also maintaining good internal health as well. And so that's good. The one question I had, and maybe you can hit on this real quick, because you're right, we're bumping up against time, but the aspect of sleep, because I know that for us, we always talk to people we help about supplements as they are supplemental. And I think when you get into more intense training, they're supplemental still, but they do become necessary, right? But there are certain things that we can do as well, just habit-wise. And I'm sure you have a bit of an understanding of just, I don't know if you could share a little bit about sleep and just the importance of sleep as it relates to training in your experience in recovery.
Yeah, I jokingly say you should sleep your way to the top, but in a very different context than what people are thinking.
Right.
And actually, before I get back to that, I posted a thing on my Facebook page a couple months ago about a study that was just done by an investigative reporter out of Denver, just north of where I live. And I believe the number was 80% of protein powders bought at across whether you're Amazon, you're going to Walmart, any of these stores, about 80% are contaminated. Okay. So again, I see these people buying protein and protein powders and shoving this down their throat. And you're right. It is like playing, like I said earlier, it's like playing Russian roulette. that was just a couple months ago. That was in, March or April, I think, of 2018 that I posted that. And that's a huge problem. You're working out because you want to be healthy, you want to look good, you want to run faster, jump higher, whatever it is you're doing. You don't want to mess with all the other stuff that you're getting. Now back to sleep. Yeah, sleep's absolutely critical. And I tell people, when I shared my story, I said it was a combination of a lot of things that made me one of the best athletes in the world. My wife would tell you, we led an unbelievably boring life for many years. Maybe still lead a boring life. But I would sleep at least 8 hours a night. When I was training my hardest, I would often nap another hour a day. And again, that goes back to the fundamental tenet here. When you break your body down, if you train at this level and you recover at this level, what happens is your benefit goes to the lesser of the two. Okay. So a lot of people focus on, I'm going to train really, really hard. Elite athletes know that you have to recover really hard. And that's where all this stuff comes into play. If you're eating really well, but you're not sleeping well, it's the weakest link in the chain is the one that holds you back. And so if you're doing everything right, though, the cool thing is it all works in concert with each other. So if you're getting the right nutrition, if you're doing all that, things like your sleep become a bit easier because your body, it's your body's natural repair time. So if you've given it all of the stuff it needs to rebuild, then it says, now I'm ready to sleep and I'm going to go down to the business of repairing all the damage that you just did to me during this workout. So does that sort of answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Man, this was really good. I appreciate it. For those of you who stuck around, just going a little bit over, I hope you got a lot out of it. I know that every time we get a chance to talk with Eli, we learn new things and are reminded of things that are helpful to us in reaching our goals. And so, yeah, I would just encourage anybody who's taking a look at, upping your efforts and the things that you can do to increase, the goals that you have and to increase your chances of success of achieving those goals when it comes to your fitness, your health, athleticism, things like that. Go ahead and get with the person who may have invited you to this tonight. They can share with you a lot more. We wanted to do at least just a brief overview here towards the end of what it is that Shackley does provide and what Eli's been using for years. And as we've heard, so many other elite athletes are using and trust. And so we're thankful for your time tonight. Eli, thanks for your time. As you were talking and sharing your story tonight, I know you were, you're a pentathlete in the Olympics, but you're kind of like a pentathlete in life too. Like just seeing all the different things that you do and how you leverage your experience and the things that you've experienced and the things that you've learned and brought them to bear for the benefit of other people. We really appreciate that. And it's great to be able to have this opportunity to hear from you on that. So I appreciate that. And last time we talked, I learned the National Geographic thing. Tonight, I learned about the Dancing with the Stars. I'm going to have to Google that, find out a little bit more about that. So anyway, thanks again for joining us, everyone, tonight. Eli, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Guys. Everybody have a good night.
All right, you as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.